Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good evening, everybody, on this lovely Tuesday evening. I'm Andrew, and we are going to be talking James Tavernier this evening. I've actually got some feedback going on in my headphones. That's really strange. But anyway, I hope you're all doing well, guys. And we're going to be talking about the man who's played 327 games in the Scottish Premiership, scoring 88 goals and creating 91 assists. 36 games in the Scottish Championship, scoring 10 goals and creating 18 assists. Played 64 games in Europa League proper, scoring 11 goals and creating 10 assists. So 542 games for our club in total, scoring 137 goals, 146 assists. Won the Scottish Championship, won as 56, won as a Scottish Cup, a League Cup, all while captain in his time here. He's also in the Rangers Hall of Fame. There we go. Of course, it's James Tavernier we are talking about. So on the day that we've heard that John Souttar has been offered a 2-year deal, we're asking the question, does the club offer James Tavernier another year? So this is going to be a bit of a divisive pod, I think. So to discuss this tonight, I have a great panel of guests. Coming in first, Doug, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Always a pleasure to talk about Rangers, and even more so the captain. So probably my second favourite all-time Rangers-related topics. So.
Oh, brilliant. So apologies, I've just had a bit of feedback come through there, and I realised what it was. I had YouTube up in the background and I'm hearing myself because I'm an absolute silly Billy. But there we go. No, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. And I'll really want to hear your opinion on this tonight, because you are normally the level-headed man when it comes to a lot of things. So I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. Next of all, Marty, I think one of us is going to have to change, pal, because I think I want to say I was here first, but actually you were here first tonight on the pod. How you doing, mate? You all right? You're wearing a lovely hoodie there, mate.
You. Well, I've got to make the effort and contribute to the journal, so all goes to a good cause.
Oh, it certainly does, guys. I'll mention a little bit more about our Etsy store a little bit later on, but this lovely hoodie could be yours from the Etsy store. We've got lots of great stuff on there. We even have a Christmas-themed jumper as well at the minute, which is brilliant. Some Christmas gifts on there as well, which would be perfect stocking fillers, so do have a look there. Next, John, how you doing, mate? Are you looking forward to this one tonight, pal?
I'm good, thanks. Yep, this is going to be an interesting topic. I fear that I might bring the negative here tonight. I'm hoping not, but I fear I might.
Well, it is the season for pantomime villains, isn't it? So, John, you might be our villain tonight, but no, pleasure to have you all, mate. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. And last but not least, Roos, it is our man, our Ross. How you doing, mate? Ross number, what are you in the Ross League? Because we've got a lot of Rosses on the Rangers Journal. What was your last confirmed position?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I was definitely number one within the crew in terms of setting this up. So I'll take it. I'll be number one. That's fine. Happy to do it. No, look, great to see you, lads. Great to see you over this festive period. I hope you're all keeping well, and you guys at home are enjoying the festive time. Delighted to talk about this guy. I'm not going to shy away from what side I'm sat on here. Tav is my boy. He's a Leeds boy. I'm a Yorkshire boy, so he has a very much a place in my heart. And I will make sure that comes across this evening, Andrew. Great to be here.
Oh, there we go. That's what I like to hear. And guys, everyone at home, do get your comments in and we'll try and get through some of them as well. Are you Team Tavernier or are you Team move him on next year? So, we're going to go into that in a minute. Before we start, though, tonight's pod is sprouts on the mind. It's Christmas, you see. Tonight's pod is proudly sponsored by the good guys over at Bluebells Bar, Puerto del Carmen in glorious Lanzarote. So when you're over there in the sunny Spanish Canary Islands, you'll find a warm welcome at the only Rangers Bar in Puerto del Carmen. Family friendly, eat, drink, chill or party. And yes, they do show every Rangers game live. There's nothing better than watching the Bears in the scorching heat. So when in Lanzarote, do pop in and say hi like our very own Colin did last week. And he did have an extremely good time when he was there. He was sending us all the photographs of the various drinks that he was having. So yeah, fair play. Fair play. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have an Etsy store. So there is an Etsy store where you can purchase Rangers Journal gear like this hoodie, which is fantastic. It's got the Journal logo on the back, and you got lots of great t-shirts and stuff on there as well, and a few Christmas bits. Just type in the Rangers Journal, all one word, on Etsy, and you will find the store. Now, let's get into tonight's pod. So, James Tavernier, the man, the myth, the legend, Doug. How would you rate his performance so far this season before we get into the kind of nitty-gritty?
Well, I think like most of the team overall, obviously the team as a whole has been poor, and he's not an exception to that. He's not been at his best, occasional mistakes here and there. But that being said, he's still been one of the better of the players. It's an argument I've made throughout Tav's career, particularly on the pod, is that for me, one of the marks of a great player is that they still find ways to contribute. They still make differences, even when they're not playing well themselves. And I think that Tav has done that, because he's right now, he's our top scorer. He's our top assister. He's second in the league for chances created. I think he's third in the league right now for big chances created. So, he's still hitting metrics both within the squad and within the league as a whole. But it's also fair to say that, there have been games like the Dundee United one, for example. He was really poor in the Dundee United game. But as I say, for me, that's the mark of why he's a good player, is that, he's still contributed when we've needed him to. He's won us, a number of the draws we've got were draws that have been gotten off the back of goals or penalties that he scored. So, yeah, as I say, I think, this season, it's been another one where there's areas that could be improved, but at the end of the day, for me, when there's big games like the Celtic match, for example, which although ultimately didn't go our way, he still stood up in that game, played about 12 positions throughout the day, got the clutch penalty to get us back in the game. He's still there when we need him. And that's, I think that's something we'll probably touch on tonight, is that I feel that we're at a point now where that's both a help and a hindrance, in terms of, it's great that he's still winning us points, he's still getting us goals. But after 10 years, should we still be relying on the same person to do that? Yeah.
No, well said, Doug. Well said.
I can be balanced.
You can be balanced. Well, yeah, we'll see as the evening goes on, Doug. As the evening goes on, but Marty, obviously, Doug mentions there. Obviously, it's been almost 10 years that James Tavernier's been at the club. How central has James Tavernier been to Rangers' success in that decade?
Well, I could go a little bit more of the opposite to Doug. I'm not a fan of Tav at all. I think we've had better players that could have captained the team over the years that he's been there. However, I can't go against his commitment to the club, being at the club for so long. But it's a sad day when predominantly the player of the match, or the player that we have to rely on, is a 34-year-old who is now starting to struggle with his age compared to what he was when he first got him. And it shows you how the state of the team and the club itself, when, as Doug says, he's our top goal scorer.
Yeah. Well, you are team move him on, as you've put there, and you've also you've gifted 5 Rangers Journal memberships. I doff my hat to you, and I raise a glass to you there, Marty. Top man for doing that, top man. Don't forget, guys, like and subscribe to the Rangers Journal. Do turn the bell notification on, and you'll be notified anytime the Journal goes live as well. And yeah, that's absolutely brilliant for Marty. Gifted 5 Rangers Journal memberships. But yep, so John, obviously, Marty's had his opinion there. Is James Tavernier still a key player? Or has the sentiment started to outweigh performances with yourself, John? What do you reckon?
I think it's a bit of column A and a bit from column B. I think he is still key to what we are doing just now and where we are. Should he be? Probably not. But I think that reflects on the poor recruitment that we've had during the summer and over the last number of years. But his sentiment and the heart kind of ruling the head and some of the thoughts around him just now, I think it probably is. I think we have seen the best of him. You can see in some of his performances of recent, probably over the last maybe 12 months, maybe just a wee bit longer than just this season, where things have started to decline. It's only natural at his age, and it's only natural given the amount we have relied on him, the amount of games we've put him through, the amount of minutes we've had to make him do. But we've never built a squad to sit and say we can give him downtime, we can take him in and out, we can give him that time to keep him fresh. That has probably caused a big issue with Tav more than any other player in our team, in our squad. So I don't think we've helped him either. And I think that's catching up with him now.
Yeah. No, I do agree. Ross, now, do you think that if James Tavernier had a challenge from somebody else for that right back berth, obviously we've had Aaron signed on loan this year who hadn't really set the heather alight. You've got Sterling there in the wings coming back from injury, obviously even Adam Devine. Would this be a different debate if we had other players that were ready to slot into that right back position?
Well, Andrew, we have brought players to slot into that position. Quite frankly, we have. We've brought players who have played against Real Madrid in La Liga. We've brought players in from a very high standard to play against these teams. None of them have been to the standard of James Tavernier, in my opinion. Why is it that after 70 minutes when Tav's on the bench, we bring him on? That's a question that I'd pose to Marty and to John. I think, Doug, you're in a similar camp to mine. But I think we've got a player here. I'm not saying that he is absolutely the player that he needs to be right now. But in terms of the player that we have had over this past period of time, the stats alone speak for themselves. This guy has been a top talent. And I will honestly put my sword in the ground and say this guy has been a phenomenal player for Rangers, and he still is able to do it now. He really is. I honestly believe that. I think he's got another year in him, even after this year. I still think he's good enough. You look at the players that we're playing against, and I think in terms of the SPFL, he is definitely up there in terms of one of the best right backs that there is. I think we got him at a brilliant time, and I think we were obviously on the, we were starting to come up from the club that we once were. But getting him in at that time, he has become a stalwart for what Rangers is about. And I hear it all the time that people call him out for being, lose mentality and all of that. I just do not buy it, because he is contributing. He is actively contributing to the goals, the assists, and all those good things that we want as a player. So I understand what the other lads are saying, but for me, I just think this guy is someone that will continue to contribute. And yes, his defensive mobility might have changed. But for me, a good manager builds a team around the quality of his players. And that's something that I've said for a while now. So therefore, you build a team around that. You build a team around the quality of the players that you have, rather than having a firm structure and making them play within it. I think Tavernier has been a phenomenal servant to this football club, and I'm genuinely proud that he's part of this part of the Hall of Fame, because I think he deserves it. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. Good to hear your opinion there, Ross. So let's have a look at some stats then. So let's have a look at Tavernier's contribution this season compared to previous years. Let's have a little look, because of course this is something. Now obviously if you're listening on the audio podcast, I will try and be descriptive as I can, because of course this isn't great if you are listening on the audio podcast store. Everyone can see this at home on YouTube. So there you go. His first season 2015-2016 seems like such a long time ago. 50 appearances that season, 15 goals, none of them were penalties, 23 assists. That makes for good reading, doesn't it? 2016-2017, 44 appearances, 2 goals, 7 assists. 2017-2018, 46 appearances, 9 goals, 4 assists. 9 goals, 4 of them were penalties, 9 are assists. 2018-2019, 57 appearances, 17 goals, 14 assists, and I keep doing this wrong. 17 goals, 14 penalties, and 20 assists. So, Doug, you're the man with the stats. You're the man that's been delving through everything James Tavernier today, and you put this together as well. So, what sticks out for you mainly from season on season with James Tavernier? Is it correct that he's in decline? Is it a natural decline, or is he doing okay? What do you see?
I mean, first and foremost, I think the thing that has to be said is just the unreal level of consistency from year one to the bottom there. You look at the averages, which I should just point out, the averages don't include this season just because it's part season. So from 2015 to 2025, he's played an average of over 51 games every single season. He's scored an average of 13 goals every season. He's put in over 14 assists every season. That is an unbelievable level of consistency over that level of time. And in my opinion, this alone is worthy of the Hall of Fame. To have played for the club at that level, at that consistency, and to contribute in that way, regardless if he'd won nothing, it hadn't gone to a European, any of that stuff, that alone to me is Hall of Fame worthy, because players, that's not an average player commitment or contribution to a team. So that's the kind of first and foremost thing I would say about that. But the other thing is, I mean, when you go through that, there is obviously low numbers as you get into those final 2 years. Part of that will be a drop as his body gets older. Every single player who gets older, they're certain things decline, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just a part of aging. One thing I will point out though, is in the last few seasons, we've had an utter dearth of penalties in comparison to the kind of 5 years before. So if you look at that period from like 2020 to 2023, there's over 10 penalties he scored each year, and he'll have had 1 or 2 missed penalties within that as well. So we're getting in the teens worth of penalties. The last 2 years we've had next to no penalties. I think last season we got about 3 or maybe 4 at the very most. So part of his goal, because a lot of people point to his goal drought, quote unquote, but part of that has been the fact that we as a club have got less penalties, and him, therefore, as the penalty taker, has suffered from that respect. So there's a little bit of that contextually. In terms of his goals from open play, they're actually kind of on a par. Last season was a little bit lower, but as you can see, obviously this season he's got this. He's still got a few. But again, the goal output is one thing for a right back. I mean, that in and of itself, obviously, as we know, he's the highest scoring defender and British defender in history, which again is another level of ridiculousness. I believe he's the highest scoring fullback for a single club of all time as well. And he's one of the highest scoring in terms of penalties.
Doug,
yep.
I must say, you've charmed me. I'm there, bro. I'm there.
That's it. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that page alone, as I say, I think is the Hall of Fame worthy in and of itself. The things that are in decline, though, because obviously that's obviously focusing on. You've got your goals and your assists. As I say, the assists alone for a fullback. If you could take all those goals away, and this would still be an amazing contribution from your fullback in terms of assists. For just in case anyone's unsure, that final column that says top 5, that's every time he's been in the top 5 for either goals or assists. So either first, second, third, or just in the top 5. So again, in terms of contribution to the team, he is contributing at the top end for pretty much every single year in one column or both. But that obviously focuses on the attack, and I think the primary point that most people will come to in terms of talking about the decline is the defensive side. which obviously that doesn't account for. That we'll look at it in one of the other slides. And I do think there's fair criticisms to make there, and we'll get to those. But right now, as I say, that slide in and of itself, I think, it's the consistency that is the real. That's the hardest thing, to be at the top level of anything for a consistent period of time. That's what makes Alex Ferguson a great manager. That consistency. It's what makes Guardiola a great manager. Consistency. That's what makes James Tavernier a great player.
There we go. So Marty, obviously Doug was mentioning there the highest scoring British right back of all time, and they're not all penalties. With that alone, especially when you see the goals that he's scored this season, in a season that we're not firing at all, would that not make him worthy of a year extension?
No. Because my argument would be, for all the goals he scores, how many times does he get done by a left winger? And how many times does he get caught too far up the pitch and ends up costing us a goal? Or the centre-backs have to sweep out because he's not covering his own position. It's all right saying how wonderful he is going up front, but a right-back's main job is to defend. And it's been well known for years, his defensive frailties. And they're only getting worse as he's getting older. The only reason he's in the team and he's the mainstay in the team is because we've never found a sufficient, good enough replacement for him. We've tried multiple players and they've just not been up to standard. And it's not to say that he's a great standard, it's just the standard we've brought in has been that poor. And that's a recruitment issue, not a Tavernier issue.
With looking at Tavernier, like you say, we always, when we were looking at Old Firm games, John, you'd always look out for, oh God, it's Maeda v Tav. He's potentially going to have a field day. That was always my fear as well, because Maeda for pace pretty much does Tav most times. Should we not be adopting maybe a little bit of something different tactically? We found a lot of the time that, especially under Gerrard, you would find players like Ryan Jack would kind of come back, would kind of cover that area a little bit and help out. We're seeing a little bit of a disjoint down the right, I think, and I think Tav these days seems to be more alone. Nobody's really, it is kind of on him. Do you think we should have been adapting our game a little bit more so that we could utilise James Tavernier a bit more? Or, like Marty says, he's a defender, he should be defending. What do you reckon?
No, I think you have to have a level of adaptation in there. You can't know, because you come back to that part what Ross was saying there in terms of you fit things around what you've got. You can't always sit and say that I want to work in a certain way. We've seen it with a recent manager of I want to work in a certain way no matter what. You've got to work with the players that are there. There are issues around our midfield in terms of how disciplined they are and the jobs that they do. So I'd be looking at some of those guys and saying, right, we want overlapping fullbacks. What do we do with our midfield? And sit and say, right, how do we get the best out of Tav? How do we look at our right centre-back? How does our right centre-back work? You know, if you had somebody, a Goldson or a Balian out there beside Tav, you give them the support, you've got somebody in there, you get Ryan Jack coming across. You don't really have that with George Suter, Nico Raskin, Connor Barron in the same way, in the same level of quality. Tav's sitting deeper, and you can see that. He can't bomb up and down the way that he used to. Naturally. No fullback is ever going to get to their mid-30s to be able to do that. So, we do have to sit and say, we've not helped him. Well, you know, we're not giving him that space to say, right, go and do what you do best and we will work around it.
Yeah, no, I do agree there. I do agree. I think we do have to adapt with certain situations, and hopefully that's something we can be a bit more progressive with going forward, with not just the right back berth, but other positions as well. Sean has got a good comment here. A fullback nowadays is about what they do going forwards. You think Liverpool and City talked about Trent and Walker's frailties. To be fair, you did see people at times, you know, people did love Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I think that's why when he was linked with Madrid, how the fans kind of turned a little bit. But there was always talk about his defensive qualities and how they weren't so good. Ross, do you think that this is just something with modern fullbacks now? Do you ever really see a modern fullback that's great at both going forward and defending?
I think the experiment was with Max Aarons. I think the experiment was there. Look, I'm not going to say that Tav's the the best defender in the world, because I don't think he is. I think there's been frailties throughout, but on balance, on the best output rather than the worst output, I think he's really delivered for us. I still think there's a part of the Rangers support, which may be in this forum here, that is still looking for a Sasa Papac, which, on the right side, which is solid at the back, able to defend, gets the ball forward, which is absolutely fine. But in this modern world of football, I just don't, it's not going to land. But I think Tav has been almost a precursor to how we want to play in terms of getting the ball forward, set pieces, quality into the box. I think he's done that. And I can sympathise when people say that maybe, moving forward, he's not the right man. But I just don't really get the whole vibe around he's too old, he's done it, because it's the same last year. It was the same last year. Everyone was saying the same thing. So is it Tav, or is it our perception of what a right back needs to be? And that's a different question. I would genuinely like to see a new right back come in as someone that could, the ideal for me as a Northern Irishman would be a Conor Bradley, who is a phenomenal footballer, gets up and down the line, but can defend at the back. Really solid player, but still gets up and down that line. But I mean, these are few and far between. We've had this guy for 10 years, and he has really offered so much to our team in terms of goals, in terms of Curry. Curry, I'm sorry. This is absolute. Yeah, we are definitely going in on Tav. But no, in terms of the right back that Tav has been, he has exploited so many teams. I remember the goals against Braga, the goals against RB Leipzig. These are unbelievable moments in our recent Rangers moments. They're absolutely incredible. So I think it's very. Maybe I'm being a bit soppy and a bit sentimental about it, but I just don't think this guy is done yet. I think he's got more to offer. I think he's got a love for our club, which is crucial. And I think he's just been a brilliant captain over these past few years. I genuinely do. And seeing him and Gerrard hugging and doing the, with obviously the legends that were there as well, with Davis and Arfield and Morelos and all Aribo and Kamara and all the boys we love. All of that was just like an unbelievable moment. And I think Tav holds that in his heart, and he knows what it really means to be a blue nose and to be someone that really loves this club. So yeah.
Almost feels like you get a bit emotional there, Ross. It's I need to put some nice music in the background, motivational music.
Titanic music would be good.
Titanic music. Well, no, the ship's sinking there, so no. But no, I respect that point there, and some very good comments there, Ross. Let's have a look at all-time appearances for James Tavernier then. So, obviously, number one, John Gregg, 1961, 1978, a massive period for the club. European Cup Winners' Cup, fantastic time. And then you look down the lists of legends: Sandy Jardine, Ali McCoist, Sandy Archibald, and you go right down. And James Tavernier's number 8, only Davy Cooper behind him, and Peter McCloy. So, obviously, football has changed, Doug. You look back in the day, when players like Sandy Jardine were around, and we played less games then, you could argue. Is this really, would you use the all-time appearance holder metric as something that is more tangible these days? Is it easier to kind of move into this kind of top 10? But then saying that, of course, we probably should see other players in there as well from the modern day, because now obviously players can be playing up to 60-odd games a season, depending on what competitions they're in. But number 8, it is pretty impressive. I can't remember the last time. You look at you look at players now that I look at from my childhood, and only really seeing Ali McCoist there, and Davy Cooper, and that was only a little part of that. It is an impressive stat, isn't it, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be when he sort of first started there. That was going to be my comeback. Is that, well, there are so few modern players in there that it's true that you play more games nowadays, or most of the time you play more games, and you see that in that kind of middle group in there from 4th to 6th. Where there's no League Cup or European appearances in there. They've gotten in there by virtue of their league appearances. You need 2 things to get anywhere near this kind of list. So first and foremost, you obviously need the longevity. You need to be at one club for long enough, and then you need the fitness in order to appear, because a lot of players you're getting injuries and things like that, and that can take away from your appearances. And again, it harks back to that other what I said before about Tavernier's consistency. He's very rarely been injured. And there's been times in the last couple of seasons where there has been suspicions that he's been carrying injuries, but playing nonetheless, because there was no one else to play. That period, I think, just near the end of the season when Sterling and Casemiro were both out, there was a period where there was a suspicion that he'd been playing with an injury, and again, as I say, it just goes to that point of consistency and that how much he's given to the club over that time. Obviously, these are his numbers to date. If he finishes out the season playing the majority of games, which as it stands he's probably going to do, he'll almost certainly finish around about where Meiklejohn is. It may well come down to how well we do in the Scottish Cup, because I did have a quick look at how many games are likely to be left. Obviously, Europe, we're not going to get we're highly unlikely to be getting a huge amount more games. So if we do okay in the Scottish Cup and he plays most of his league games, he could well finish this season in 5th. So in terms of this particular table, getting an extra season could be a big difference, because if he gets another year, he would only have to play half of the games that he normally plays, and he'll go above McCoist, and that would leave him as the 3rd all-time appearance holder, which is, again, as I say, a phenomenal record for someone to get. And you don't do that unless you're at least a decent player. You need to be at least toting your Papat 7 out of 10 so that you're picked. I mean, people talk about Tavernier seeing off X many managers as a negative, but you can quite easily turn that around and go, well, every single one of those managers continued to pick him game after game after game, kept him as captain time after time after time. There has to be a reason for that. They surely can't all be wrong. So again, this is a mark of that consistency.
Okay, that's a mark of consistency. It's interesting when you look at it. Obviously, Davy Cooper, I think he had about 2 years on James Tavernier and is pretty much around a similar mark. Again, less games played then, dependent on competitions and stuff. Marty, do you take much into account from all-time appearances? Obviously, do you think that there could be a bit of an asterisk with this due to the fact we were in the lower leagues? Obviously, James Tavernier couldn't help that we were in the Championship. He was still here, still playing, and there were different times. Obviously, look at the Graham Murty's dual era. You look at the kind of times that were going on in 2018, 2019. Pedro Caixinha. Do you take this into account? Does this stand for anything? The all-time appearance holders in at number 8.
Well, I kind of feel appalled the fact that he's in amongst what's known as Rangers legends. And for me, it highlights the poor recruitment, because when you look at when he was actually brought to Rangers, Doug can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was under Mark Warburton. It was a completely different situation and a different squad then to what it is now. We're fighting in the Championship to try and get promoted is nowhere near the level of trying to win the Premiership. So the fact that we've not been able to he's literally one of the only positions we've not been able to recruit any better. And I'm sorry, but if you're bringing somebody in when you're in the Championship in Scotland and you can't recruit any better, then one, that player's either exceptional, which I don't think Tavernier is, or you've got really, really poor recruitment. And if you look at the last few years, it's not just in Tavernier's position. We've got left back, we've got central midfielders, we've got attackers, but we've just not replaced the same quality with that quality. The quality that we've replaced it with has been worse. So it's no wonder that Tavernier's in that list when we've not been able to recruit somebody who's good enough to replace him. And the guy's 34. He should be having time off, select his game time so that he's not burning himself out. I mean, you look at the stats for the amount of games he's played over the last few years. Those should start to reduce to try and protect him, make sure that he doesn't ruin his muscles. But we're having to rely on him because we don't have sufficient players good enough to replace him. And that's to the detriment of Rangers and the recruitment process. And it's not just been this season, it's been last 2, 3, 4 seasons. It's just been progressively getting worse. Each position pretty much has been progressively getting worse. We're not replaced like for like. And when we can't replace a player that we signed when we're in the Championship, it says a lot about the club.
Marty, I'm going to have to come in. I'm sorry, Andy, Marty. I'm going to have to come in. That is an absolute disregard for what this guy has actually done. Where were you when he was scoring goals against Braga, against these teams as we're leading up to a potential Europa League final? Sorry, you can say what you want about this guy, but I will not stand there and hear it when you're saying that he was a championship player. He was brought in at that. Yes, he was. Yeah, fine. But that's a brilliant piece of recruitment. He has been not just by me. So I'm not just saying it's by me, but by Glasgow Rangers Football Club. He has been recognised as a legend. He has taken us to those precipices of quality that we've never seen in a lot of our lifetimes. So to say that he's come from he was a championship player and therefore that's we're putting him into that position. That's absolutely rubbish. I'm sorry, it's just absolute rubbish in my opinion. It's absolute tosh.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Then has pretty much every single position in the club been replaced since he came to the club? The answer would be yes. The only reason he's not been replaced is because we've not recruited sufficiently good enough. Because if
have
he
we
was in
recruited sufficient? Sorry, Marty. I was just going to say, have we recruited sufficiently enough for other positions, though? Really, year on year, we have been getting worse.
Well, Andy, my question here is: we have tried to recruit right backs. We have tried to do it. We've taken someone that's playing in the Premier League in England that was playing against Vinicius Junior last year and had an absolute stormer, and it hasn't landed. So I'm struggling. I think this is another moment in time where we go, where the fuck is Dessers? Where the fuck is Igman? Because everyone was slating them. This will be the same thing with Tavernier. Mark my words. This will be another thing. This will be another moment in time when we go, where the hell is Tavernier? Because we're going to end up with someone useless at right back who doesn't offer any forward-thinking moves. This will happen, Marty. I'm sorry, it just will happen.
Well, the only one player that we could have had is Nathan Patterson, but because the board were too greedy, they sold him. So,
well, yeah, we sold him for. But we sold him for
exactly.
Far too much.
We sold our next best player.
We sold him.
Yeah, with Nathan Patterson, it was the right time to sell. It was one of the rare instances where we did have someone come through, somebody that actually learned from James Tavernier in the few years that he was with him. He was coached by Tavernier in that position. He looked up to him, the skipper, and we actually managed to kind of kickstart the player trading model, something we hadn't really been able to do. So we did sell him at the right time, and I think that was the case in point at the time. We had spent a lot of money and we did need to sell Nathan Patterson. But when it comes to James Tavernier, and obviously I was saying we were looking at recruitment, John. Our recruitment hasn't been necessarily great in recent years in certain positions. Some players have worked, some haven't. Is it just the fact that when you look at this, you can look at this a couple of different ways? Maybe just James Tavernier isn't as easy to replace as we think?
I think there's a bit of that. I think something you've seen from the stats there in appearances tells you one of Tav's biggest advantages. He's always fit. He's always ready to go. And you look at, in the last 2 seasons, the 2 players we've recruited at right back, Dujon Sterling, Casemiro, couldn't stay fit. Injured, long-term injuries. And you don't give anybody a chance to sit and say, right, I'm going to go up and challenge Tav. Let's give him a taste of somebody really clipping at his heels to push his performances on, to give us options to play at right back. We don't have that. We've recruited really poorly. Unfortunate as well, because you can't account for Casemiro getting injured with his national team. Dujon Sterling's made of biscuits. I mean, goodness only knows what's going to happen there. So I think he is hard to replace in terms of if you don't scout right and you don't try and recruit right. Are we guilty of just sitting saying that, well, he's Tav and we can't replace him and we can never recruit something in that place? Yeah, I think we can get caught up in that and say, well, we don't have to replace 100% like for like. What we have to do is bring somebody in and say, recruiting around them, making the team better so that we bring the next right back in. We're not relying on him for 30 goal contributions a season, because we're bringing in 30 goal contributions from midfield, from wide, from strikers. So back to that point of relying on him, because we think we rely on him, that means we think we can't replace him. And we have to find a happy medium there somehow.
Yeah, no, can't disagree with you there, John. Can't disagree with you. Everyone at home, make sure you are liking and subscribing to the Rangers Journal. Turn the notification icon on as well, and you will be notified anytime the Rangers Journal goes live. We are talking James Tavernier this evening. 1 more year or too many tears? We are looking at whether Rangers should offer James Tavernier another year extension to his deal, which does expire at the end of the season. He's entering his 10th year at Rangers, and he's had some good times, he's had some bad times. I think sadly, due to where the club has been, there's been a lot more bad than good. But Ross, one thing I'm going to ask you, would you say his style of play has evolved as he's aged? What does that say about his ability to remain a key part of the first team now? Has his style of play changed at all, or is he still trying to do the same things he was trying to do maybe 5 or 6 years ago?
Really good question. I don't think necessarily I don't think his offering to the team has changed. I think it's very similar, but I think the way the manager has played him has changed. So I still think he has, as we all know, very good ball into the box, very good in terms of looking at that pass. There's always been the age-old question, do we play him further up? Do we keep him where he is? To me, that it's semi-irrelevant as a captain of our club, in my opinion, because the amount of times we've seen him come in and influence a game, even now at 70 minutes or 75 minutes, and he's dug us out of a hole. I think it's very hard to look past that, because the guy is clearly able, and he's clearly so intertwined with what Rangers is about, that he comes in and he delivers. For me, it's not necessarily about where he's playing, but it's about his output. And I think he is receptive to new managers. I think it's actually more annoying for him that he's had to go through all of these managers, these, arguably, managers that have just failed him in a way. So I think, and I completely hear what everyone's saying here in terms of his purpose in the club, but I still think this guy needs to be recognised for his output, and I think that's one thing that we are overlooking here. We're looking elsewhere, but his output is still exceptional. It is exceptional for a right back. It really is. So and that's always been the age-old problem. How do we get someone that gets the output? How do we get someone that gets the actual tangibility of goals, assist? We've not been able to do that for years. It's almost the Borna question again. Borna, whilst he probably wasn't the right player at the end, he still had an output. And during his time at Rangers, he had an output. Arfield was the same. Aribo was similar in the Old Firm games. Tavernier has an output. That's very difficult to find. And you can always try and recruit other players through and trying to get them to that level. But Tavernier will continue to have an output in terms of goals, in terms of contributions to goals. That's tough, Andy, to actually, come by. It really is.
It's tough to come by without spending money. And I mean, probably looking at
even
12
still,
million. Yeah.
But even still, Andy, where in Europe do we look for that?
Yeah, no. No. You're not wrong, Ross. You're not wrong. I do agree with you there. Doug, I'm going to come to you now. This is a question that I think you'll like this question, to be fair. But would you say that James Tavernier's leadership is always kind of called into question at times, especially when the chips are down, times are hard, we're dropping points. Is his leadership still translating effectively on the pitch, or have others started to take on that mantle, like Jack Butland?
Well, to answer the last part first, I don't think anyone's particularly taken it up successfully. I think we've seen signs from Butland. We've seen signs from Raskin, for example. I think we've seen signs from Barron in recent behaviour and performances as well. But I don't think there's an outstanding person there right now that you would just immediately 100% go, yep, he's the next Rangers captain. There's candidates, but I don't think there's an outstanding candidate. In terms of Tavernier, again, yeah, that's one of the long-standing discussions is whether or not James Tavernier, quote-unquote, is a captain. We did a whole pod on that once, I think maybe over a year ago now. And it was interesting because so many of the people on the pod, they just kept going back to trophies at the time, which to me is a byproduct of being a good captain, but isn't actually really much to do with being a good captain in terms of the qualities. And I think you've got kind of two different types. You've got the more old school type, which is the very vocal, blood and thunder, practically pushing over your own players and telling them what's what. And there's a very ingrained, I feel, love for that type of captain within not just Rangers fans, but I think Scottish football fans in general, because we've still got quite a traditional and romantic view of football overall, I think. And Tav isn't really that kind of guy. He is more. He's not soft-spoken, but he's certainly more level-headed. But I do kind of jar slightly at people who say he never shouts and things at people on the pitch, because he does. And I mean, a game recently even got booked for it, for mixing off the referee too much about a decision. He does shout at people. But I think the way that Tav tended to lead was by example. He leads by pushing the team forward. He's a very progressive player in terms of moving the ball forward, and of course himself getting forward. That's been the hallmark of his game. And I do think that there has been, elements of that have dwindled as his physical ability to do that has dwindled. So there is a slight element of that. And I do think he has been less effective probably in the last 12 to 18 months in that regard. Because again, it's a byproduct of getting older. And because that's his style of leadership, it kind of plays into that a little bit. Plus also, to be honest, I think there's going to be an element of he's tried so hard for so long that it will get tiring. And I think you've seen it in some of the interviews this season. There's been a slight change in Tavernier's interviews this year. There's the obvious Tav disappointed meme. That was, his 10 usual chosen types of wording. This year, he's not really used that word. He's actually specifically criticised the squad him and Butland as well, in quick succession after certain games. He's been a bit more pointed and a bit more critical of the team, which I think reflects that, where obviously we were so bad in the first quarter of the season. I kind of just got the impression he was just like, I can't believe how have we got to this point, and because in his head, obviously he could look back at being in a team that got to a European final. That was a good Rangers team, and I could quite believe that he's sitting there now looking at this Rangers team and going, how have I gotten here?
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you know what, Doug? Right, you make some very good points there, and I do agree. Obviously, I think a lot of people will know I do like James Tavernier. I do like what he's done for the club, and I do feel that sometimes have been quite challenging, and it's not all been on him. But I do accept there are frailties to his game as well, where maybe we need to adapt a little bit. Like Philippe Clement, he obviously tried putting him in midfield, like one in front of where he would normally be, and things like that. But let's have a look at the accolades. This is where is the bottom line for a lot of people. Marty, obviously, 542 appearances, 402 of them as club captain, 137 goals, 143 assists, 5 trophies, 1 European final, Europa League top goal scorer. He did win the Golden Boot in 21-22. First ever defender to be a solitary European top goal scorer. Europa League team of the tournament 21-22. Most Europa League appearances for a club. Second most Rangers European appearances ever. Second most Rangers European goals ever. Highest scoring British defender of all time. 6th highest scoring defender of all time. 2023 Hall of Fame inductee. What do you reckon, Marty? Is that a Rangers captain there?
Yes. And I don't buy the argument of people with he's the least more successful captain of the club. But like's been mentioned in here, the club's been through how many managers in that time, and he's been the mainstay right back. Back to the fundamental problem of recruitment. And I will agree with Ross that he was an incredibly good recruited player at the time, but we're now 10 years later, and if we can't find somebody who's going to step up to the mantle, not necessarily captain material, but step up to the role that he's placed upon right back, then we're doing something fundamentally wrong at the club, because the whole point of a club is to progress and get better. And if you've held on to a player for 10 seasons now, and you've got nobody in the pipeline at all as a potential replacement, the club itself is doing something fundamentally wrong. I can't question the guy's loyalty, because the amount of appearances and goals and assists and all the things that you've got on the accolades there, you can't question his loyalty. But at the same time, we've not exactly been awash with offers for him either. So it's a little wonder that he's been at the club for 10 years when nobody's particularly biting your hand off to buy him. Other players that we've had that have been quality have been sold for stupid money, really, but they've been sold for that reason, good money. Nobody's come in with an offer, and the whole time he's been here that's, we're going to take that, we'll bite your hand off at that, because he's not worth that, so we're going to take that because we think we're being given more money than what he's worth. So it's a bit of both. You can't have it all negative, but at the same time, you've got to look to the future. You can't look at the past. If we were looking at the past, we'd be still living in the time before we got relegated. So you've got to move on. He's 34 years old. He's going to have maybe, 1-2 years at best. We've got to have somebody in the pipeline that he can either teach them what he knows or can be trained to a sufficient standard. And at the moment, we do not have that in the club.
Yeah, okay. You make some good points there, actually, especially when it comes to the bids. I think there was only one bid that we were aware of from some club in Turkey, I believe. I think they chanced their arm when... was that not right, Doug? Doug shaking his head? No. Well, the thing is, when it comes to transfers, I think a lot of the time, if people are being sounded out, if James Tavernier is happy at Rangers, then it's very likely an agent could get he's happy here, there's no point. We don't always know what goes on behind closed doors. I do feel that if Leeds ever came in for James Tavernier, he probably would go somewhere like that because of it's the club he supported growing up. And don't get me wrong, if some massive club comes in for most players, you know, if you had like a Man City or Real Madrid, of course, any player's going to pretty much jump at that opportunity. But I think we don't see a lot what goes on behind closed doors when it comes to a lot of that stuff. James Tavernier always kind of has seemed fairly happy. The one thing I want to pick up on is, obviously, Marty mentioned about loyalty, John. Is loyalty enough to kind of extend for another year, would you say? Or is loyalty just something that you don't really see in football? And if a player's at the end of their career now, do they need just moved on? What do you reckon?
It's not enough on its own for me. I think in terms of 10 years, you've had loyalty from both sides. So you can't say that neither party has shown loyalty in that period. At this point in time, would I be sitting saying that everything that's gone before automatically gets a renewal? No, not necessarily. James Tavernier has been a very good servant for this club. He's been an excellent servant. And I will be front and centre when it comes to his testimonial when he gets it. But is that enough for me to sit and say that he should be getting another year's contract? No, and I think that's, as a club, we have to decide whether or not loyalty to James Tavernier or trying to move forward is the best thing in the short term and the kind of medium term. Only the club and James Tavernier are going to actually make that decision. And we on this pod here will agree and disagree with certain parts of it. I don't think loyalty is enough. I think if we were winning trophies regularly, we were playing well regularly, this defence was really good where it is. I think you could play on loyalty and sit and say, do you know what, let's extend for another year or two. I think we're getting at this crossroads of what's the next phase of all this.
Yeah, no, very wise there, John, very wise. There's been some great points from everyone tonight. Doug, Marty, John and Ross. I knew this would be a divisive pod. It's very one or the other. I don't think there's ever really anybody in the middle when it comes to James Tavernier. But Ross, given Rangers' wider need to refresh the squad, it already looks like we need another rebuild because, of course, it's Rangers. This is what happens. Does re-signing Tavernier help or hinder that process?
What an amazing question, Andy. You should do this for a living. In my opinion, I think having someone that's been through the trials and tribulations like Tav has would be an asset. That's not to say that he needs to be a starter. It's not to say that he needs to be the captain. I think there are assets within our team, such as Raskin, Barron, who are hallmarks for what a Rangers captain should be. That being said, I think there's something about Tavernier that I really like. His approach to football, his approach to Rangers, his approach to all of the things that we love are spot on. So for me, I think he would still be an asset to the club to have around because he can remember that having Defoe around. He can remember having, these amazing footballers in our moment of time in the past sort of 10 years that really brought something to the club. I understand that his purpose is starting to mitigate with his age. I get that. I do get it, but I still think he offers something. So for me, I'm Tavin. I'm Tavin.
You're Tavin. Here's a little graph here about his performance over time. Doug, you put this together, mate. Another fantastic bit of data analysis. You're very good at this stuff, mate. Pretty consistent, actually, looking at across the board. Passes into the final third, obviously, that has got higher, especially around 23, 24. losses in own half. That has kind of gone down on the
Improved.
strategy. Yeah, no, it has actually. It's definitely lent, I think, probably to read the game a little bit better in some respects. This actually leads to a question that I do have, Doug, and I think you might be the one that might have an answer for this. So obviously Tav has faced criticism over the years when the chips are down and we need a result to go top of the table after the winter break. There's been a few times where we've actually been in contention. It looks like there's a title race on. And it's been argued in situations like this that he is actually a bit below par. Things seem to fall apart.
Yeah.
A lot is pointed at his leadership at that time. Is that right for people to think that way, or is that a false observation that has become a little bit of a Mandela effect, that it is just old Tav? Is Tam's the kind of visual symbol of when he gives that ball away in that game where that team gets one shot on target, and then that's the kind of loss that puts us on a downward trajectory to then fall 6, 9, 12 points behind? Is he just the visual representation of that, and it's not all down to Tav? Or is it a bit of a Mandela effect? Is it something that we do look at and go, it's James Tavernier that's the problem and he's not the problem? What do you reckon overall, Doug?
As with most things in life, the truth kind of lies in the middle. Does Tav make defensive errors? Yes, he does. Does he make more defensive errors as a 34-year-old than he did as a 24-year-old? Yes, he does. But again, you're looking at balance over the course. So Marty and a couple of guys in comments as well, when I was talking about goal scoring, said, what about how many goals he loses us? In terms of his goal, if you can take his goals and his assists together, he would have had to have been responsible for every single goal we've lost in the league back to 2013, which is quite obviously not the case. So there's a level of balance there and that's always been the thing about Tavernier, because I think we're all okay admitting that he's not the best defender in the world. Although I would know January 2024 he was statistically the best defender in Europe, just so we know. But he's not the best defender in the world. But if he was able to do what he does at the top end of the park with the same level of quality defensively, he'd be Real Madrid's right back right now, not Rangers right back. So, there's a level of we need to appreciate that we don't have the best players in the world, because unfortunately we're not in a position to do that. I did try to be very careful when I picked out these stats. I did have a whole list of things to not just pick the ones that were good. I wanted to try and make a fair reflection of this. And the bottom ones in particular, they are lower, than in his peak years. So, he's not making as many interceptions as he used to. Players are getting by him quicker, particularly when he's up against some like other really young, dynamic wingers that we sometimes particularly come up against in Europe. He does struggle with those types of players. But, again, he's 34-year-old. I think you have to, make a bit of an allowance for that. It all comes back to that question of, at 34, because over the course of his career, as I say, the balance has always tipped to the positive. He's always created more and done more in the positive column than he's cost us in the negative. If it was the other way around, managers wouldn't have kept picking him. Simple as. Managers pick players they think will help win them games. In terms of, you sort of made the point about losing critical goals. Again, I would say he creates and scores more critical goals that have gained us points than he has cost us points. Celtic games are a great example. There was the volley point about Maeda. Until very recently, Tav's goals and assists were almost double that Maeda had in Old Firm matches. He's caught up in the last sort of couple of games, but we were still winning that 1-on-1 battle, albeit it didn't optically look great. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but almost every single time he's cost us a goal in an Old Firm, he's also scored a goal in an Old Firm. So he's got a nice little habit of cancelling his errors out in those ones. But, the errors are there. And when it comes to should he get another year, we're talking about loyalty and stuff about that. it ultimately comes down to that question. Will James Tavernier at 34 still be of benefit to the team moving forward? If the answer to that question is yes, give him an extension. If the answer to that question is no, then say, Tav, you've been one of the best players in our history. Thank you for everything you've done, but we need to move forward now, and we're going to put someone else in
Doug.
their place.
Right. Oh, sorry, Ross.
No, I was just going to say, Andy, you've been so subtle in the back, like a little shrew sat there just watching us sort of discuss this and pick it apart. I'm desperate to hear your opinion, buddy. What is your opinion?
Well, I'm going to go for a vote in a second and see if anyone's
Oh,
opinions
you
change. But
absolutely
I will.
did.
I'll for just for you, Ross. Seeing as it's you asking, I'll do this just
Yes.
for you. So I appreciate James Tavernier, and I think that, as you said earlier, you said it actually quite perfectly earlier. For me, he will be one that we are not going to know what we've lost until he's gone. And I really do feel that. As an attacking fullback, we've struggled a lot with left backs, trying to get a real good attacking left back in there. There's nobody that's matched what he does on the right. He does make errors. I'm one of the first to go, oh, FFS Tav. And sometimes you remember those games more than others. Old Firm games, how many times has he popped up at Parkhead with a goal? For me, the one thing I always looked at was Europa League final. He steps up for the first penalty, the biggest amount of pressure that a Rangers captain probably has ever had when you look at European football in the tournaments, and he put it away perfectly in the postage stamp. Yes, he's missed penalties in his career. He's scored a lot as well. For me, that took balls. That took actual balls to put that penalty away. And in theory, set us up for a good start, which obviously I won't go into any more about that because we all know what happened. Would I give James Tavernier another year? I would, but it would be, I'd be looking potentially at phasing someone else in at the same time. So he's the guy there that helps coach whoever comes in at right back to be the next right back there at the club.
And who's that, Andrew?
And who is that? That is the multi-million-dollar question at the minute. Casemiro looked like one of the real challengers for him a few seasons ago under Philippe Clement, but injury just kind of put stop to that, and unfortunately it's difficult. It is difficult. Nathan Patterson looked like somebody that could actually challenge him, be in that position, but again, injuries ravaged his career. He's not really set the head for a light at Everton either. Maybe if his injury record gets better, he could be somebody that comes back when his contract's up. I don't know. It's for the guys at the scouting department, but I'm sure actually the scouting department at the Rangers Journal will be able to probably find who the next right back is, because the guys there are normally good at doing that. But let's go for a vote then. So obviously, you know where I stand. I would give James Tavernier another year. Probably would be to kind of oversee someone else coming in, and might not be starting every week, but I'd give him an extension. Doug, yourself?
I mean, my obvious answer is yes, because then I get to watch James Tavernier for another year. But I do genuinely think it comes down to if he's going to contribute and he can contribute. And I totally agree with what you said, by the way. If he does stay, it has to be with a view of that forward look. We have to be bringing someone in to try and challenge. But as long as he will be still a contributing member, then yes, because I'd like to see him leave with a trophy in his hand, which unfortunately is less likely this season. So let's give him another year with Roll and get a treble, and that'll be a great way to finish.
So that's 2 for another year. Marty, what do you reckon, mate? Has anyone swayed your opinion?
Not really, no. I think we have a fundamental issue at the club with defence, and as much as I would like to see Tav stay on to blend in a new defence, realistically, I think the guy's 34. He needs more rest than he does playtime now. And when we're asking for a player of his age to be playing 40, 50, 60 games a season, I think it's unrealistic. So for me, it would have to be no, unless he was clearly made a squad player.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So it's 2-1 at the minute. John, How do you feel?
It would be a no for me. If it gets one, I won't moan about it. I wouldn't kick up a fuss about it. If it was to me, this back four needs ripped up, completely started again. We sit here constantly and say defensive shambles, a defensive nightmare, and then don't really want to change it. So whether it's Suter, Tav, I wouldn't be renewing contracts. I would use the summer as an opportunity to bring in a complete fresh start. But if he's handed an extra year, an extra 2 years, I won't complain about it. He will get the backing from me as he has done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair. I guess that's from like a business point of view as well. It's looking at things like that. So yeah, no, that's fair enough. Ross, you were team Tav out, weren't you? Is that right? If I remember right.
I was, yeah. Team Tav from the bottom. Now we're here. But no, I understand what the lad's saying. I get it. It's not necessarily the place you want to be. But I see Tav in the same way as a kind of a Koke, Griezmann, that sort of like stalwart within your club. You know, these guys are stalwarts. So I see him as our stalwart. I would offer him another contract. I think he would take it. And I think, we would bring him on at 70 minutes like we do now. So that'd be great.
Ross in the 94th minute with the winner for Team Tav there, 3-2 up. So it's 3-2. I know this would be a divisive one because it is a difficult one. There's lots of different metrics. It's not an easy thing. You know, I'll always say you want to remember some players and you want them to go out on a high. And you look at kind of Elvis and his comeback tour, you know, to go in a completely different direction, you know. Things didn't go so great. Could this hinder him? Could this make things better? I don't know, but I think it will help Blood another right back through. Marty, did you want to say something there, mate?
Yeah, I'll pose your question slightly different and see whether we can get a slightly different voting outcome. Would anybody disagree with a year's extension, but with a coaching attachment to it?
That's an interesting one. So, so not playing at all, but just in a coaching capacity.
No, a little bit like what Defoe done. Defoe was player and coach, right, if you remember, in his last spell. So something along those lines where he plays when needed or when we deem it necessary to play him, but we give him more of a coaching role so that he'll help the youth, he'll help bring in players that can either play in position he's played in or help the defensive side of the game, because obviously it's a struggle for us at the minute, and obviously who better to rely on than a guy that's been at the club for 10 years to coach the younger ones on how to defend.
I thought you said he was a bad defender. Why would you want a bad defender coaching the team?
Oh, this is getting tasty, baby.
Right, Andrew, finish it.
Oh, to be fair, I was going to say to him, no, he can coach people about going forward and how to drive into the box. If we can kind of coach players on how he played under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, ghosting in at that back post all the time, in Europe, he was just prime Tavernier then. You know, that goal against Dortmund, you know, everything. Just that's it. No, to be fair, it's a very good question, Marty. But I think he would be somebody good to have around. I think you do need a Rangers person and Rangers people around the club. That yes, it's not been, the years haven't always been kind to him. It's not all been him. There have been times where we've had very poor teams around him. Somebody put a great comment here about Sir Walter. He would have adored Tav as a player. He got to tune out of players like Broadfoot. Imagine what he could have done with James Tavernier. And do you know what? I do agree. I didn't manage to get through a lot of the comments tonight because we have slightly overran as well, because it's been such a good pod. We've had some really good opinion from the guys. But one thing here is one I want to look at from Vladdy. How many trophies did Kane win at Spurs? Great players don't always have massive trophy hauls. And actually, I know it's probably one of the rarer cases, but you know what? I do agree with that comment there. But so what, in hindsight, do the club owe him a final chapter? Well, that's up to James Tavernier and the club and Danny Rule to decide. So I'd just like to thank everybody at home. Your comments have been fantastic. I'm a bit gutted I couldn't get through all the comments. There's been some really good comments in the comments tonight, so thank you for that, guys. I'd just like to go around everyone and thank everyone. Doug, thank you, mate. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, mate, and thank you for the superb graphics and stats.
Yep, always a pleasure to talk Rangers and doubly so when it's about Tav. So cheers. And again, just to echo what you said, a lot of great comments as well. So thanks for joining in, guys. The vote with the public was 50-50.
Oh, look at that. It's definitely divisive, isn't it? And one thing I will say, Doug, is James Tavernier does have posters of Doug on his wall as well. So it's definitely a two-way street. It's definitely a two-way street. Thank you, though, Doug, for coming on tonight. Marty, thank you ever so much for coming on and giving your opinion. Well backed up as well. Thank you ever so much, mate.
No problem. I don't mind discussing players, whether it's Tavernier or others.
That's it. It's all about debate here on the Rangers Journal. We've had some good debate tonight, so thank you ever so much for coming on, Marty. Always a pleasure to see you, mate. John, thank you ever so much for coming on, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant to hear your opinion and your dulcet tones, mate. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Really good chat. That has flown in tonight.
It really has, hasn't it? I think there's so much you can go into even still now about James Tavernier and the cases for and cases against. It's something I think we can go on about for a week, but thank you ever so much for coming on, John. And last but not least, Ross, who's looks like he's just smelled his own fart in the room there. You all right there? Thank you for coming on, mate.
Lads, great to see you. Great to talk about Tav. Andrew, as a Southerner, good to have you on the pod. Yeah, brilliant. What a wonderful night.
A fantastic night. So all the better for seeing you, lovely gents. And of course, don't forget, guys at home, do like and subscribe to the Rangers Journal. Do head over to Bluebells if you're in Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. It's the only Rangers bar there, and it is a fantastic bar as well. Our Colin from the pod was there last week, and he was living La Vida Loca in there, and he said it was an absolutely fantastic place. So if you're heading to Lanzarote, do head there. And don't forget, we do have memberships for the Rangers Journal as well. All the information can be found on YouTube, and you can join for 99 pence per month. And visit our Etsy store, The Rangers Journal, all one word. There's lots of great clobber on there for some great Christmas ideas. So only one thing for me to say now, and that's every night is a Rangers Journal night. Take care, everyone, and see you soon.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.